Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, nerds?
What is going on?
I'll tell you what's going on, Trevor.
Yeah?
It's time to pop open a cold one.
There you go.
There you go.
That one didn't have the just kind of
yeah,
was
I know.
It was a lazy little pop.
Yeah, no, it didn't. I don't know.
You'd already opened it, or?
Yeah, I already opened it.
Okay.
Like I'm like, oh, it'll probably do the fizz thing again. It didn't. I was like, oh, there you go.
Nope. Yeah, so we are going to be talking about a handful of little things here today. I have some thoughts on High School Musical, the series season 2, which wrapped up this last weekend. Cameron has been playing a lot of Pokemon Unite, well as he finished the Castlevania series on Netflix. And then he has a couple songs that he kind of wants to just discuss. Songs of the summer, as it were, I guess. Going to be probably a little bit of a low-key episode this time. Ironically, not talking about Loki, which I could certainly talk about at length, but we will save that for that D+ show at some point. But if you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, just like all of our wonderful Patreon producers do. Thank you to our monthly Patreon producers, Pam Larson, Sherry Starkey, Teresa Wilkinson, and myself, Trevor Starkey. That money always is nice because it goes and helps pay for the podcast feeds, as well as we just had our website kind of, I think, renewed and all of our emails and stuff, so that helped kind of go cover some of those costs. Cam, what do you want to kick it off with? You want to dive into Pokemon Unite, music, Castlevania?
Let's start off with Castlevania, since that's kind of like an older topic anyway.
Okay, yeah.
I am coming back. Yeah, I'm coming back around on it. So, I've always been super curious, like, where things were going to go in the Castlevania series, the animated series after season 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a couple years now, so I'm just going to spoil it. Like, they successfully killed Dracula at the end of season 2.
Oh, good to know. I only ever watched the first season, went way back when it came out, and I was like, yeah. Way to go. It was really cool, but I just never circled back around to the show.
It's still totally worth it, even if I tell you that, because the way that the entire adventure kind of unfolds itself is very, very cool.
Yeah. I mean, clearly the show was not about killing Dracula if it happens halfway through.
Yeah, it kind of it's interesting because season 3 and then season 4 especially are about like the ramifications of like the underworld. I say underworld not in so much as like meaning like hell or the afterlife, but so much more like the kind of like dark side of society in regards to things like vampires and other night creatures. And so you have like a lot of like interesting things happening because all of a sudden the undisputed ruler of that world is dead. And the way that he dies and the manner of everything, and also kind of like the culmination towards his death, leave a lot of ramifications to everything, and also a question of like, what is this legacy that he's left behind? And season 4 is a really great conclusion to all of that. It gives a lot of tremendous, if season 3 was about the characters struggling to find like purpose after Dracula's demise, because of course, like your main 3 characters, 2 of them are of course one's a Belmont and the other is like a essentially Magi who is a recorder of history, but the third member of that party is Dracula's son, Alucard.
Mm-hmm.
And so like a massive question is, okay, it's Alucard. How does Alucard handle murdering his father? And that has been a really like tremendous kind of exploration, because it deals like with the question of patricide, but it also like there also is a big thing where it's like, well, yeah, but but this culture is also dog eat dog. Like the strong eat the weak. And so if Dracula dies, what does that mean for everybody else? And season 4 has a really great twist, I think, in the second to last episode of like, oh, so that's who has actually been behind things so far for the last 2 seasons. That's been cool. And like it has just a tremendous voice cast. The voice cast is phenomenal. The storytelling is really top notch. And I think that it really ends on just like the absolute best, like the best ways that that show could end. And the fact that they're also talking about doing now a spin-off, or rather a future continuation, further down the line of the Rondo of Blood saga of Castlevania, and bringing up that, and especially with the way that season 4 particularly ends, I'm very, very curious to see how it goes forward with that, because it's set things in a completely different motion than you would expect, because this is not dealing with the quote-unquote curse of Dracula, which is every 100 years Dracula comes back to life and his castle like is revived. That's not what they're playing with here. They're playing with something completely different. And so how they're going to go about that, like the thing about the hook about resurrecting Dracula in season 3 and 4 is interesting alone by itself. And so like it's very, very cool. I'm very curious to see where they go with this. This, of course, is the ID Shankar group who put this together, made this deal happen, which that in and of itself was a flat-out miracle, considering the fact that Konami doesn't do anything but make pachinko machines these days. That's all they do.
Yeah.
So licensing out, like, everybody was super surprised when they announced that Castlevania was going to be a show. The fact that they chose Castlevania 3 as kind of like the plot line and through line for everything, it is awesome, because that is where you first meet Alucard. It's where you first get a diverse cast of heroes, so it's not just the Belmont character. And it even does a lot of cool things. Like it ties into it gives us our first official canonization of I'm forgetting what the PS2 game is called, but it's essentially the story of the first Belmont. And it totally does away with the Dracula's curse, or what, not Dracula's curse, but the more recent Castlevania games that came out in the 360 era, that were more akin to a Castlevania-inspired Shadow of the Colossus. That just like the first one was like really well received. The DS, like the 3DS game that came out afterwards, was not, and then the sequel was just like butchered in reviews. So I'm super curious to see where we go further with this, but it was super cool to finally finish it out, especially since the series has been like one of my highly rated series for a very long time. I just never got around to I was super into short form content on YouTube for a long time, and so finally swinging back around and getting it this time was great. So
yeah, I'm looking at it definitely. I remember like that show coming out and everybody being like, "That's a weird choice for a show," and then like it wowing everybody, and everybody being like, "Oh, that was like actually really good," and like because it was the first season was only like 4 episodes, right? But it was like 40-minute episodes or whatever.
I think so. I think it was like 4 or 5 episodes, and each of them were like almost an hour long. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they were like, "It's gonna be back," and I was like, "Oh, cool." And then I just never circled back around to that show, in large part because like Castlevania is not a series that I've ever really had a deep connection to, a deep affinity for. But yeah, it feels like it was one of the first ones that kind of kicked off this era of like doing video game to TV show adaptations.
And then being good, yeah.
Yeah. Because I know like what Netflix also has lined up like a Cuphead show now. They got a Splinter Cell show lined up. Obviously they've been doing The Witcher and had great success with the first season of that, and that's coming back. Got what a live action Resident Evil, a live action cartoon. Okay. Yeah. That's and Adi Shankar is doing a Far Cry thing. Yeah.
Well, it's Far Cry Blood Dragon specifically.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's very cool. I love that Adi Shankar, as somebody who cut his teeth by bringing insanely high production levels to these short films in his quote unquote bootleg universe. Like it is awesome to see him continue to succeed. He is a super, like, if you ever watch his stuff with Kind of Funny, he is a super weird dude. He is super intense, but he is also incredibly awesome. So,
yeah.
And if there's like one thing, that guy having like no protection means like I don't want to put too many things in a basket here, too many eggs in a basket, but I think he's safe. So,
okay.
If he's not safe, I don't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
I need things that I like to keep being able to like them.
I mean, I definitely.
Oh, sorry, I'm a bit tired. Sorry, I'm really tired. First, like just out of this, we're also shooting this like doing this kind of late, so I apologize. That was a weird series of comments that I just made. My apologies.
I mean, it was a train of thought, and all of the connective tissue wasn't necessarily. I mean, like it definitely seemed like you were basically like, I hope he's not a guy that gets canceled.
Yeah,
Was the
that's
was
basically
the
it.
was what it boils down to. And I was like, I don't know that guy's life. I don't know what he has like any in any of that stuff. But yeah, I remember his like Power Rangers in, like you mentioned, the bootleg universe kind of thing. What he did, like Power Rangers. I think one of like the Mortal Kombat videos was his or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, he had some really cool stuff out there back before kind of those things started like making their way back into mainstream, and giving the idea that like, hey, maybe there could be like a more adult themed version of these kinds of things. And that's like effectively what Castlevania ended up being. Cause like I
Mhm.
remember that first season coming out and everybody being like, oh my God, like it is super violent, but also like really well done. And really like they do a really cool,
Mhm.
like really great job with the animation, all that stuff. So I was like, yeah, that definitely lines up with what Adi Shankar has kind of like been interested in doing. So
So yeah. Anyway, yeah. So like he does that extremely well. I think season one actually still has like some of the best, like one of the best dialogue scenes, and it's 100% with like a random demon from hell and like a priest, and it is what like it is a extremely good like set of dialogue of like this idea of like the way witch hunting and everything was just used to propagate um, power and dominance of the church, and like and it's just the way that it leads into everything. So for anybody who doesn't know, literally the start of the show is Dracula super pissed because a bunch of priests kidnapped and put his wife to the torch, his human wife to the torch, saying that she was a witch.
yeah.
And so he was pissed, and he decided to essentially end humanity because of it.
I mean, yeah, it very much. I remember being like, oh, I mean, they definitely gave him a reason for being the way he is and why he hates people. Like, yeah, that definitely was cool. Um, yeah, I'll be interested to see where the like how it comes back and how the Rondo of Blood like spin-off slash continuation, how that ends up kind of being received in comparison, because I feel like Castlevania was one like it made a splash and then it was just kind of like I don't think it ever really like reached the heights of that first season, at least in like in our sphere of like communication. Like I would occasionally people see people like tweeting about it and talking about it, but it very much was like oh, that's right, that's a thing that came out a couple months ago and somebody finally like circled back and caught up to it, just kind of like
Yeah.
you have with kind of the wrap up here. So it wasn't one of those, and maybe this is just because we now have like an overabundance of these kinds of things dropping every week, but it was like
That's
one of
really what I think
those,
it's more of that. So
like there wasn't a centralized like, hey everybody, like season 4 of Castlevania is out and everybody's going to be talking about it.
well, I
Even
think more. Yeah, I would actually pin this on Disney doing weekly releases, like not doing season drops, and to the point where like that's I think that is kind of where we're at, is that if you have everything to binge, but you only have one episode of this new show that's out this week, you're going to watch just that one new episode.
mhm.
I think that we have overindulged on the binging, and we have decided that like you can kind of see it with like how look what dominates news cycles every single week. It is the newest episode of whatever Disney Plus show is releasing a new episode that week.
Yeah, I mean it
Yeah,
definitely like that methodology keeps things in the conversation longer, obviously, and I think it is. Yeah, like I just binged Ted Lasso like last week, but now I'm watching the episodes as they come out on a weekly basis and stuff, and it is
hmm
like I can still do the binge, and if there is like a thing high profile enough, like I'm sure when Witcher season 2 comes out and it all comes out in like one chunk, there will be a conversation around it for a while. but yeah, it
I
definitely.
wonder about that though. I don't know if it will though, Trevor, because
I mean, it'll depend on if it has a
yeah,
toss a coin to your Witcher banger again, I guess. But yeah, it definitely the like let's dump it all out at once binge approach, like absolutely limits how long press around the thing is going on, which is why Netflix is like, I mean, I think their whole thing this year has been like, hey, we've got a new movie that is dropping on Netflix every week, like a new Netflix produced or Netflix like purchased movie going every week. And none of that, like, none of them have really like made a splash. It seems like the Netflix, like the last Netflix thing I remember really making a splash was like To All the Boys I Loved Before. And then those had like diminishing returns with each subsequent movie. um,
yeah.
and they just
The
didn't make that big hit.
The last one I know of is Love slash Sex, which only is well known because it has a scene in like it has one of those moments where people are like, go to this time code on this episode, and that's all you'll need to do to get like an idea of why people are freaking out about the show. And it's literally just like, okay, they show some male nudity, and one of the dudes has a big dick, and they show off his big dick.
Actually, I guess, yeah. What, like, was Bridgerton a Netflix thing? Because
Bridgerton was a Netflix thing, yeah.
That's what I remember watching, and of course, like Tiger King. Like, part of it is just like we've had everything that we could just watch for this last year and nothing else to do. So it was like we just burned through all those things. But like, I mean, even on the weekly front, like the Bad Batch is still coming out weekly, and like nobody's talking about that. Like even when I went to watch the latest episode this last week, like it is buried like 9 things deep in the, hey, this is what's new on Disney Plus. And I was like, that's like, you would think that Star Wars would be like one of their front banner things, but it's just not. And maybe it is just like that. It didn't grab people in the way they were anticipating. Or maybe there's like just that significant disparity between like, well, I guess now it's like they're trying to sell whatever they have on premium access. So it's like the banner things are Jungle Cruise or Black Widow. But yeah, it's.
Ooh, what's your feeling on Scarlett Johansson suing Disney?
I mean, I'm for it. Like, and I'm for it. And then I think the Disney like response of like, she's being so cold to understanding that there was a global pandemic. It's like, don't, like, fuck you. You got, if you like what she's asking for, you guys could have renegotiated the contract or something. You didn't do that. So like it I think like even Kevin Feige, like, reports are basically saying that he's like annoyed by Disney's response to the lawsuit.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, like I think especially if, you know, her earnings were tied to, as we've seen, like a lot of the Marvel people are tied to like box office returns, putting it out day and date on your platform is going to impact the box office returns. I mean, I'm the kind of person that probably would have seen that a couple times in theater, but since I could just buy it on Disney Plus, I bought it there. And you know, they like box office revenue was lost kind of thing. So
they're estimating, I know that some people are estimating somewhere between 30 and 50 million dollars that she lost out on because of a like it was purchased through Disney VOD versus like if anywhere from the like 3/5 to everybody who bought it on Disney went to go see it in the theaters, she would have made basically 30 to 50 million dollars.
Yeah.
So she missed out on a significant amount of money, which is essentially her farewell to the most successful franchise in human history.
Yeah.
So like I'd sue them too. And now it looks like Emma Stone is also possibly looking at legal action over, because she had some losses
for Cruella, yeah.
Yeah. Although I think that might be apples and oranges when it comes to the ballpark of numbers.
I mean, it's still like I've seen a lot of actors out there talking about how it would set a good precedent, especially because like SAG contracts aren't, you know, like, I think one of the things they're constantly kind of talking about and thinking about is how do you know, actors get their residuals for streaming. especially
Mhm.
since streaming companies are typically very clandestine in like view numbers and how all that's recorded and stuff like that. So versus like, people who get their residuals for something that's rebroadcast on TV or something like that, people,
Mhm.
still making money, like getting pennies on like checks from, a movie from 20 years ago or something like that. So, yeah, I've seen a handful of people out there, and it's one of those like of course Scarlett Johansson probably doesn't need the money or anything like that. I get that, but like the principle of the idea of like, well, Disney did screw them, and Disney, the corporation, will probably take any opportunity they can to keep the money because they are, the gold dragon. They are Smaug.
Mhm.
So the somebody like Scarlett Johansson going out there and like fighting for, the appropriate wages and the impact that this business model could have needs to be basically reevaluated, I think. So
Yeah.
I'm for it.
Same.
I see
I'm
no
I'm in
problems with it.
agreement. I
It's one
tweeted
of
out
those.
about it.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it's just 'cause it's one of those things like it is it's it's just a weird business model in general that like she is the headliner, gets such a significant cut of the movie compared to like all the people that worked on it, the everybody in the credits and all that stuff. But that's a whole other like classist issue within
Yeah.
the film industry as well as it is. But yeah, I think I've also seen people talking about like how would something like that even translate into games. People like, because
Mhm.
that's been a conversation I think for a number of years now, is like if an actor as performance becomes just that much more and more critical in narrative based games, when does the games industry turn into a case of a Troy Baker getting a percentage of the revenue earnings of a game versus a fee for service coming in and committing to a few months of work or whatever. Like when does that conversation shift into the gaming space, and then also just the streaming space, I think is where those elements are a thing. And I've seen that conversation in the acting space, in the writing spheres, and directing, all that stuff. So um
Writing, especially, like that was a big thing when because I remember back when streaming was just starting.
mhm.
There was a massive response from the Screenwriters Guild of America, where they went on the Writers Guild strike that lasted almost a year and like destroyed some television series.
Yep.
Like some series, Heroes is probably the biggest one that people remember being just absolutely screwed. As like the show, I feel like never recovered from the writer strike
Yeah, I mean it was
problems.
like Heroes was definitely a casualty, but then you have something like Breaking Bad that like came back from the writers' strike. Like the writers' strike famously like saved Jesse Pinkman's life, basically, because
Hmm.
they had to cut that first season short, and it gave Vince Gilligan time to like rethink and say like, oh, people really like this Jesse character, so maybe we shouldn't have him die at the end of the first season or
Hmm.
whatever. So yeah, like I remember that impacting, and it's definitely weird sometimes to go back and like watch a show. Like I remember doing a rewatch of like The Office recently,
Hmm.
and like season 4 I think is when the writer's strike happened or something like that, and it's like this weird, like there were a lot of 1 hour episodes that were like split up into two parts, but then like it is very abrupt that like the season just kind of ended. um so yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely is impactful. I remember also the late night shows and stuff like that, where the host would be out there still doing their show, but they'd basically be like, I don't have a writers team, and I stand fully in support of the writers side of things, so I'm going to come out here and like wing it for an hour or whatever to talk to you. Yeah,
I
very
know. I know.
interesting era.
Jon Stewart did a version of the Daily Show called A Daily Show, which essentially categorized it as a new show, which allowed him to personally, as a human, like as an actual like producer for that new show, hire um, his writers team on contract to essentially like basically they are still working in solidarity with like by protesting and not working on their show
Hmm.
and striking, but at the same time they could work and get pay by being basically contract hires for this side project that um like was a quote unquote new show, basically.
Yeah.
I remember that happened. Conan did the same thing. I remember.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. Like, yeah, there was a lot of stuff that people did to try to work around that. But man, it was a rough year to be a fan of television.
Yep. Yeah, it was I mean, it is an important part of the industry that often gets overlooked in favor of the, the celebrity culture and all that stuff. So,
Yeah. I was gonna end it by saying, I tweeted out about it also when the stuff came out. And I'm like, you know what? Listen, like, yeah, this is her bag. Like, she deserves what she deserves, and she's owed what she's owed, and like they shouldn't be like. And it, like you said, if this sets a precedent going forward,
yeah,
then you need somebody as big as Scarlett Johansson. Is Scarlett Johansson also partially a punchline because she's made some questionable choices and statements regarding her choices?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
But it's the kind of thing that, like, if Robert Downey Jr. came out and did this same thing, if somehow like Avengers Endgame had done this or whatever, and it was like RDJ basically coming out and suing the company for breach of contract, I'm sure there'd probably be like, even like a significantly less fervor around it. So I think some of the backlash that Scarlett Johansson is getting is because she has said weird and dumb things and has taken, some weird and dumb roles. But I mean, it's still, it is kind of like if she was expecting that and Disney kind of like screwed her by choosing this business model instead to try and get Disney as much money as possible. I mean, like, there's also this whole element of like Disney strong arms movie theaters into like requiring a higher than average cut goes back to Disney, and less money stays with the theaters already. Like, that's already a known practice that they do. So much so that like when Raya and the Last Dragon came out, a lot of theaters didn't like have it. They didn't like put it in their theaters amidst all of the COVID stuff as well. But then to like I hate the corporate statement of them like hiding behind COVID or whatever and saying like, how, like, think of all the people who are suffering from COVID and you're suing us. Like, fuck off, Disney. Like,
I look at that especially because like from what her public statement said was her legal team and her legal team tried to get a renegotiation to like basically say like, hey, we understand COVID's a thing. Let's rework things out to make sure that everybody gets their fair pay from it. Like, let's renegotiate. She'll take a smaller cut of this to get a cut of that, and it'll all even out.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't do that. They didn't respond to her requests, and they put the movie out, and they went ahead with this. And so, like, I really think that, like, I don't know if Disney really has a leg to stand on this. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see like where that falls in the courts and everything. I'll be or if it even makes it that far, if they settle out of court or something. But it's an interesting story nonetheless, especially just navigating what this new day and date route looks like. I mean, like, especially I'm very curious to see if it sets a precedent for any of like the people attached to like Warner Brothers projects that because like they famously came out and were like, hey, we're putting everything on day and date on HBO Max, and like people like Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve were like, what the hell? Like, that's not, you didn't consult with us on that at all. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if any of them kind of also dive into this and be like, oh yeah, that's right, there was like a financial toll that this could have taken because you're like, this affects and impacts your accounting. So very fascinating.
I'm still gonna go see Dune in theaters. Are you kidding me?
I mean,
I want to see that. I want to see that movie so bad. It looks so good.
Yeah, I mean, I most likely will as well, knowing virtually nothing about Dune. Like, I'm already a fan of Denis Villeneuve, so but also like it looks really cool, and maybe it'll get me to read the book or whatever. But yeah,
I'd caution that aspect of it. As great as Dune is as a novel, it is old sci-fi.
I'm not actually going to read the novel. Like,
fair enough.
I don't read enough of anything. Period. I've been reading the Final Fantasy VI boss fights book for like, I don't know, 3 weeks now. And I'm just like, I slowly am like working my way through it. It's just like I read a handful of pages here and there, but it's definitely not like a daily thing I'm doing. It's one of those things like, oh, I've played video games until like I'm ready to wind down for bed, and then I'll like lay in bed and be like, all right, I can't sleep. Let me grab the book and read a little bit. Um, so yeah, I'm just not enough of a reader. So Dune is not like is not actually in in at risk of being read by me, but um, yeah,
Yeah, poor
I
good
just spend too much
lucky
time.
Dune.
I just spend too much time watching stuff like High School Musical, the musical
There you
season
go.
2. Sorry, High School Musical, the musical, the series season 2. Um, segue. Yeah, so that wrapped up this last week, and like I said, a little bit ago, like even as so that one's been coming out on a weekly basis, and even that one, like you know a few weeks into the new episodes coming out on Fridays, basically got to the point where like that was just not showing up on the front page of of Disney Plus at all. It's still like you still don't have to scroll as far to get to that as you did to get to the Bad Batch, or at least for me, and that's despite us having done this summer of Star Wars. So like Star Wars is all in my recommendations right now, but the yeah, High School Musical, the musical, the series, season 2. Uh, I still remain like surprised by how much I enjoyed the first season of the show because I'm talking, and if you're watching the video version, there's an empty chair. I don't know if Cameron can still hear me. Yeah, he can. Okay. Um, uh, but yes, so I really enjoyed the first season, despite not really caring about High School Musical, the movies at all. Like I remember watching the first one around the time it came out, I think, because the fever pitch around it was so high. Um, and then like the next two iterations, I occasionally got around, or like I got around to at some point, but I did not have any like deep affinity for the series, the series of movies. So when this came out, I was like, oh, that seems really weird. Like the name of the show didn't bother me because I was already very well aware of High School Musical, the musical, as like
Yeah,
having seen multiple like companies around town doing stage productions of it and stuff. I'm like, that's a funny approach to the name. So when they came in like the musical, the series, I was like, cute. But I had like zero interest in really checking it out when Disney Plus launched. And then like friends who had checked it out were like, no, it's really good. And so I was like, all right, I'll throw it in the mix alongside the Imagineering story and the Mandalorian season 1. Like it was just kind of part of the routine that first batch. And I was like, I'm surprised by how much I really enjoyed that show. Fun characters, like all of the acting I think is like definitively better than the movies it was based on, because the movies it was based on were Disney Channel original movies, and had that level of acting behind them. Like whereas this is a proper series, and yes, it has like cheeseball stuff in some of the writing, but the performances are really good. And so season 2, instead of doing the like logical next step of like, okay, we'll do High School Musical 2, the musical or whatever, they instead decide they're going to stage Beauty and the Beast, the musical, which is cool. And then like the season didn't really do a ton with the music. Like the music is definitely feels less involved in the series in season 2, and part of this may have like been drastically impacted by COVID. I don't know. There's like one episode in particular where they do a lot of stuff over Zoom, where it's like, okay, this feels like this was the episode that they were filming when everything just went to crap and they had to like rethink
yeah,
production. Um, but for the most part, it was just kind of like a normal series and stuff like that. There are like a couple episodes. In that Zoom episode, it is like every character kind of has their own like plot and is pretty much in like their own little bottle episodes, where it's like, okay, it feels like they definitely couldn't get the cast actually together for this episode. Um, but it was a fun series overall. They do a fun kind of approach for the season that is basically like, you know, the high school that all these kids are at is going to enter like a musical theater awards kind of showcase, and the rival school across town gets involved, and turns out they're both going to do Beauty and the Beast, um and like so they're going to have like rival ideas, and there's like elements of like Romeo and Juliet and like characters from opposite schools kind of being interested in one another and stuff like that. It was fun. It will be very interesting to see, I think, where the series goes from here, given that Olivia Rodrigo's like star and stock has just completely blown up this summer as from her album. So it'll be
Yeah, I wanted
interesting.
to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Because I really I watched the first episode, and I was like, oh, I'll keep watching, and I never did.
Hmm.
But I was really I was like, huh, Olivia Rodrigo, like, how do I know that name? And then all of a sudden people are like, oh, she's from High School, the musical, the show. And I was actually super blown away by her songwriting ability and her singing talent are really incredible. Deja Vu that just released not too long ago was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing where her stock has risen over the last year.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
I did, so obviously I don't follow the dirt sheets or whatever on a lot of that stuff, but it's fascinating because having watched the first season as it was coming out, they would do behind the little scenes kind of things, and one of the big kind of finale episode numbers, they made a big point of the fact that Olivia Rodrigo and I believe Joshua Bassett, I think is his name, Joshua Bassett, the two leads, the lead couple in the show, they wrote the song together, and basically, I mean, they got input, I'm sure, from the songwriters working on the show and stuff, but they were the credited writers and performers of the song, of one of the non High School Musical songs, and so that was a cool element of the first season of the show, and they definitely lean into the character as a songwriter moving forward, in season 2, and then seeing all of the Olivia Rodrigo stuff blow up, I think right before or right around the time of season 2 kind of coming out, was fascinating, because that's when I start hearing oh yeah, no, those two were supposedly dating, and then apparently had a bad breakup, and that's what a lot of her songs seem to be referencing, and so they still have to go and do this show together. Mm-hmm. and the show, I mean, minor spoilers for season 2, but season 1 ends with them getting back together, because they were a couple, and then they broke up, and then season 1 is all about them finding each other again and getting back together. And then season 2 is immediately kind of they're not on the same page, and so they're and they're going their own routes, and she wants to do her own thing, and he's a little too clingy, and then recognizes that he's too clingy to her, and ultimately halfway through the season they kind of decide to maybe take a break or whatever, and figure out what that's going to do. So it's watching that after having heard all of the bit behind the scenes stuff that may have been going on between them. It's oh, it feels like this was written a little close to home around their actual potential love life. So it's a weird thing to have that as an extra layer on the show, I guess. But I think they handled it in an interesting approach, because it's not the typical kind of will they, won't they story that I feel you see, especially not on a kids show like this. They get together at the end of season 1, so you think, okay, well, they're just going to get together and stay together for the series, and then the fact that complications come in, and it's not even it's just they're both going through different things, and they're at a very young point in their lives and stuff. So it's a very it's a much more natural high school thing of we thought this was going to fix everything, and it didn't. And so maybe we're better off kind of exploring our own past and trying to, be our own people for a little bit, and see where, see if we, come back to each other again. All very interesting elements. Yeah, especially given, again, the meta narrative, and the rare times I do just listen to music when I'm going and grabbing food or something like that, and I hear an Olivia Rodrigo song come on, and it is talking, it is that old Taylor Swift vibe of just completely railing on an ex. It's oh yeah,
you said forever, now I'll drive alone past your house.
Yeah,
that level of I know I'm young, and this is dumb, and I'm in love, and it's breaking my heart, and I know that it's it won't matter in the long run, but we promised to get our driver's licenses together, and now you're dating somebody else, and for me, that's a great thing. And then her song Deja Vu, which is all about how
you're telling
You're
the same
sh-
jokes that I told you to her, and all that stuff. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like,
and my favorite part is she goes, "You're showing her that you play the piano, but I'm the one who taught you Billy Joel."
mm-hmm.
And I'm like, first off, Olivia Rodrigo teaching somebody else Billy Joel already makes me like on her side of everything.
Mm-hmm.
The big Billy Joel fan here. So immediately, like, I'm on your side, Olivia. Joshua Bassett, whatever his name is, screw him. You're going to do so much better, girl. Don't you worry about it.
Well, I mean, like that is like abundantly clear from the obviously her rise to superstardom and stuff. But like,
oh my gosh, she's so cool. She's so good. I love her.
It's especially interesting because I think he has like arguably he's the main character of the show, in that like his family life is also central to a lot of the plot and stuff. Like his dad and the teacher are like interested in having a flirtation kind of thing, and how does that impact him versus like Olivia Rodrigo's character is largely like we largely see her through the lens of her being like Ricky's girlfriend and stuff, and in season 2 very much like kind of recognizes that, and that's why it sets her on her own path to try and like start being more active in music writing. And it, like, again, minor spoilers, but it ends up like, oh, maybe that's the path she's going to go for season 3, and like she's going to go on her own adventure. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where the series goes from there. If they
Trevor, she's gonna have to start touring soon. Like, I mean, that's the whole thing.
I mean, that's like, honestly, the first season felt like it was designed around that idea that they would do the same kind of thing that the original High School Musical kids did, of like, we're going to go on like tours and sell stadiums out and stuff like that. And then obviously COVID hit and they couldn't do any of that. And so maybe that's why music took a bit of a backseat in season 2. I don't know, but like there were definitely episodes where I was like, have they done any songs this episode? And then maybe there'd be like 1 or 2 by the end or something like that. But yeah, it was interesting. And then like obviously because they were doing it around the Beauty and the Beast, like they of course have the mainstays and staples and stuff of like they're going to do a big number for Be Our Guest, they're going to do something for Beauty and the Beast. They did somewhat like of an, I think one of the most interesting ones they did over the season was the mob song, that like Gaston sings against the mob, because it was like that was when like the schools were coming together and decided they were going to do like a dance battle basically, and they were like, all right, we're going to pick a random song, and somebody hits shuffle on the thing and they're like, the mob song, all right. But they did like a remix version of the song and whatnot, and
cool.
And all had right. Like the like it worked for like a Pitch Perfect Step Up style like dance off kind of thing between the two rival schools, a Sharks versus Jets kind of element. Like it was an interesting song to have as a background, and like when I was listening to that song, I was like, that's a fun song. Like it's definitely not one that you would think of in like the pantheon of Beauty and the Beast songs, but like I'm glad they found some way to work it into the season. But yeah, then they had there's
some really fun moments actually, now that I think about it, in the movie.
Yeah, around
that song, like about like when Gaston's getting everybody super afraid, and they're like, oh, like under like they're like your babies and all that part.
Kill the beast. Yeah,
kill the beast.
Yeah, it was fun. They do have significantly less in the like original songs department, it felt like, this season. And again, that might have largely been due to COVID and stuff, I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see where they go with season 3, if they're gonna like anchor season 3 around yet another show, because the whole premise of this one was like it was the spring musical, so I don't think they're gonna like they're going into like the summer months. So what's that gonna like? One of the characters is graduating, but is he gonna still be around? All that stuff. So it was fun.
The obvious answer is Camp Rock, whatever sequel it is. This time tied in with High School the Musical, the show.
There you go. Yeah. I do want to give a special shout out to Sophia Wiley, who plays Gina. I think she had a lot more to do this season, and was like a lot of fun in her role. In particular, in that like Zoom episode that I mentioned, she's kind of having her own thing. Like she's trying to fly home to see family and stuff, because they had like the show kind of has like a wink and a nod of like, you, the audience, know this is all like COVID related, but we're not going to say that this is COVID related. We're going to say it's spring break, and that's why the kids aren't all together and stuff. Yeah, it was funny. But so she's trying to get home to see her mom or something like that, and she basically gets stuck at the airport. And Asher Angel, I believe is the guy's name, who is the kid who plays like young Shazam in the Shazam movie. Like he showed up, and basically like they have a scene together, or like a day at the airport together, and it was like, oh, like cool, especially because I guess like they were on a previous Disney show together, so it was like a little reunion for the two of them. But I'm like, oh, this is like DC Shazam movie level actor that they brought in for like this one-off kind of thing. And then Jordan Fisher also ends up making a cameo, so it's like they got some like cool people popping in here and there for High School Musical, the musical, the series, season 2. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It definitely didn't feel as like much of an impact, I think, in as season 1. But again, like going back to the Castlevania conversation, that might just be like law of diminishing returns slash just not really like there just being so many other things out there. I mean, the fact that like the show started while Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think, was on, and then ended after Loki is wrapped up. Like it is, there was,
Jeez, yeah, it's been rough.
This was very much like the little child, like the little sibling to the big Marvel things that are on Disney and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. It's sitting down and like having my routine of like these are the new shows that are dropping on Fridays that I'm gonna make sure I try and watch by the weekend. Like it was often one of the first ones I was throwing on there, and so it was now like Friday it was okay, I gotta watch that, I gotta watch the new Bad Batch, and then on the Apple TV Plus side I gotta watch Ted Lasso and Schmigadoon. And so like I kind of knocked all 4 of those shows out, and talking here about High School Musical, the musical, the series, because that one is wrapped up for another season. They also did a nice thing at the close of the episode that was like a thank you to our production crew for, all of the hard work that made season 2 happen. And you see like a lot of behind the scenes people, pictures, or video of people in masks and stuff like that, making sure it worked. It was like a fun little blooper reel thing. And then they did kind of I wouldn't say like a deleted scene, but it was like all of the kids singing one of the High School Musical songs, like getting together at like on the last day of shooting, basically, and kind of celebrating together like the trials that they'd all been through as a cast. So that was a cool little thing. Yeah, I presume it's coming back for season 3, but and I will be interested to see where it goes when it comes, because I enjoy it. It's fun. All right.
cool.
So tell me about Pokemon Unite. We talked a little bit about this on this month's Patreon early access episode, in your kind of like Game of the Year watch conversation, but you've gotten really into Pokemon Unite in the last couple weeks. So tell me about it. It is the Pokemon MOBA that is taking people by storm.
I guess, I don't know. Like I think like the fervor around it's died down a little bit since Halo's first
yes.
flight
But
took over this weekend.
But once that's done, people will be back to Pokemon, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I will say that it is probably like this is a game that should not work this well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Pokemon game that honestly feels like it was supposed to be a cash pull tie-in game. But the way that it works, the way that it's set up, so the way that a MOBA works in general, for people who don't know, is a MOBA is essentially, I think it's a multiplayer online battle arena is what it's like it stands for.
I believe so.
But the entire point of it is essentially is that you have two opposite teams going down multiple lanes, clearing objectives, which in this case, which in most MOBAs is taking down towers in that lane, so that then you can bring in an army of creatures that spawn in your base that move slowly across the lanes, so that you can actually destroy the enemy base. Pokemon Unite has stripped it out, a lot of that out, to make it more simple for people, especially for I think younger kids, because instead of having they're called creeps, the little mini monsters. Instead of having those are actually just like they're neutral, will attack anything that comes near them, and there are no towers that then attack you or creeps. There are just hoops that you take anytime you destroy an opponent or you destroy a creep. they drop these little Pokeball balls that when you collect them, you essentially dunk them in a hoop. And each of those hoops, the first one has, I think like each of them has like 100 counter that you have to take down with how many balls you're putting in. And the goal is whoever puts in more balls into these hoops wins. And so the first 2 hoops that you have on the top and bottom lane, if they reach that threshold, they disappear. And so the only one left is the one back at your base, which in turn kind of would make it more difficult for people to score because it's closer to your spawn point. On the flip side of that, there's also things like that give you bonuses, like special creeps like it is in other MOBAs. But really what brings it down to is there's a very diverse cast of Pokemon in this game. Like, of course, you have Pikachu, you have some of the more classic starters that have really been like the big standout starters, whether it is... what is the Ninja Frog? I'm trying to think of.
I know what you're... I know the Ninja Frog. I can see it. Is it... not
he's in Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
He's in Smash Brothers. He's very popular. I hate that I'm kicking myself that I can't remember his name, but
yeah, let's see if I can pull it up.
Yeah, it's there's that. You have Cinderace, which is the soccer bunny like the soccer fire bunny.
Greninja.
From Greninja, yeah. So you have Greninja, you have Cinderace, you have like basically like you have Charmander and Bulbasaur are in there. Pikachu's in there. So like some starter Pokemon that are very popular and famous within the franchise. But then you have a lot of like a few other ones. You have Slowpoke and Slowbro. You have Snorlax. You have you have a couple different kinds of Pokemon ranging from a couple different generations. But I think the biggest thing that I take away from it is that there's no such thing I think as a bad Pokemon. They each have their strengths. There are some that I think are definitely stand out stronger than others. Pikachu comes to mind because Pikachu is a base level, never evolves into Raichu for the game, and so it can be deceptive if you're not paying attention to where the enemy Pikachu's level is, how badly they're going to hurt you. So that can sometimes be kind of crappy, but outside of that, like the game itself is just really well balanced, really well played. Like it's fun to play. Each match is only 10. Like, and here's another thing. You can score as many points as you want. There's no threshold to win. What it does, and this is why I think it's actually probably one of the best MOBAs I've ever played, every match is on a 10-minute timer.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get these like hour-long League of Legends matches that are ebbing back and forth for an hour. It's 10 minutes tops, no matter what.
Yeah.
And so it's scoring as many points as you can within 10 minutes. And because of that, I think that it brings a lot of fun to it. It brings a lot of ideas of like pacing, like how much time in the match has passed. Okay, I need to be at this certain point in my progression in order to know that I can stay competitive in this match. And it's fun. I really, really enjoy it. It's been great. I am at Great League rank 4, which I believe after I do that, I enter Expert, which is the third highest, because it goes beginner, great, veteran. No, it goes, that's right. It goes beginner, great, expert, veteran, and then master. Master rank is the highest rank, and it's only given out to like the top 100 players. So it's cool.
So it's a free-to-play MOBA. What is the microtransaction game to it? Are you buying access to like other Pokemon?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's partially it. You can there's a lot of different small ways that they can charge you for microtransactions. But the biggest one that you're going to walk into is, I really want to play this Pokemon. It's not in it's not in Pokemon that I've unlocked through progression of logging and doing things daily. And it's not part of what's currently part of the free rotation of characters, which are essentially the characters that are for like this week or whatever. This set period of time are free characters for everybody to use. And then after that time passes, they go back into being locked, and new other ones that were previously locked move into being like free Pokemon that people can use. So it's the League of Legends Dota model, Dota 2 model that you see from those games being implemented here. And like it honestly, like it's not that expensive, like to buy one of these Pokemon. I bought like first day one when it dropped. I bought Garchomp and Gengar because I wanted to play them, and I've definitely gravitated now more as a Gengar player. I had a match earlier today that I actually was really worried about because I accidentally picked the ability upgrade that I didn't want, and so I was running with an unoptimized build, which was super scary. But my team recognized. I don't know if they recognized it, but they were able to pick up the slack and carry me through on that match. But otherwise, I'm extremely dominant. I'm doing very well, and there are I'm really enjoying this game. Like I said, I'm only in like the second highest. I might as well just call myself in Gold League or whatever, or Silver, for people who play other games to know where I'm at in it. But like I'm enjoying myself. I really enjoy the competitive mode. It has been a challenge and fun, and I look forward to when people are done playing the Halo weekend flight. I look forward to playing with my friends some more.
There you go.
So
yeah, so as you kind of been talking about, I've been doing some reading up on it and stuff, and I see like IGN criticized it for like the microtransaction, calling it kind of pay to winny, and so it sounds like, is it that like, oh, the Pokemon that you can buy are maybe better or have better?
No, the pay to win structure, I understand where they're coming from on that. So when you get into higher competitive levels, the like other Pokemon games, there are battle items that you use, and then there are held items. When you progress far enough and you level up your trainer enough, in the progress for that, you open up more held item slots. Held items are leveled up through item upgrades through a separate currency, which you either get slowly as you progress through the game and play more matches, or you can buy. And when you upgrade those items, they do put out, like, they are a higher version of that item. So yeah, here's the thing, you can drop $20 and upgrade your item set to max item level. But that doesn't mean that you are going to you're going to immediately win. You'll definitely have a significant, there will be a visual, identifying advantage that you have. But if you don't know how to play the game, if you aren't practiced with that Pokemon, I don't care if you've paid as much to level up all these items. If you don't know that Pokemon's moveset, if you don't know the optimized build that you need with that Pokemon to accomplish the kind of fighting style that you want to have, it's not going to work. If you're like, okay, cool, I've given Pikachu all these upgrades for his special attack, cool, but I'm not playing at a ranged point where I'm going to be at my optimized mid-range attack range for Pikachu's abilities, then it doesn't matter. If you don't understand that basic concept of Pikachu, like the optimized Pikachu playstyle, that's not going to matter. If you are playing as Machamp and you are trying to tank a fight, that's not what Machamp's playstyle is. His playstyle is more of a all-rounder melee, but that doesn't mean that he can take on big beefy guys and be okay. If you're not playing him correctly, if you're not launching your abilities and here's the thing, some abilities do lock on, some abilities require you to aim. Like, these things do happen, and especially if you're fighting multiple opponents, you can't necessarily always trust your lock on because it will bounce between your enemies. And so if you're targeting just one enemy and another enemy comes up, you auto target out to that enemy, you need to be aware of that so you can make sure to correct that and make sure you're hitting the correct enemy. There are these several things about this that I would say does not make it pay to win, but there is a pay to have an advantage for sure.
Yeah, so I guess if you do know what you're doing and you get this stuff as well because you paid for it, does that not make you unbeatable, but does it give you a solid advantage over some, if you were to play yourself and you have an equal skill set and you equal knowledge kind of thing, let's do a matched up 5v5, everybody knows what they're doing, but one team has those things leveled up because they paid. Are they I guess what's the likelihood that they're going to win versus the team that didn't invest in those bonuses?
If both teams play perfectly, the team that has the items that are upgraded will probably win.
Yeah.
But that's a
Right. Yeah, I mean,
but that's a hypothetical.
and I imagine that's what they're driving at is like, oh, if you're already good at this game and you like want like that extra little boost, you can pay for it and you'll, make yourself a little bit more unstoppable or something like that. So it's that's unfortunate to hear, I guess. But also I understand like that's the business model of those kinds of games. So um, I'm not surprised, but it's also like just it's for me it's just kind of a fascinating thing as like an onlooker that's not gonna hop in and play these games myself. It is there is like an interesting element of like the way you're describing the game though, because like I definitely if these games had taken off, and because I mean they are clearly all like spawning from your like your Warcrafts and your Age of Empires, like those combat
Oh yeah,
strategy mechanics and stuff like that. Obviously, like what Dota was originally a Warcraft mod, right?
Warcraft 3 mod. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
I
like
played a lot of Defense of the Ancients,
so
which
yeah,
is what
like
the Dota stands for. So.
yeah, there's an element of like, oh, if this game had come out like during that period in my life where was like really into the real time strategy games and stuff like that, it'd be very interesting to see if like a different version of Trevor had like emerged that got really into those kinds of games. But it's like
No, that would mean that because that means that you'd be playing League, and that's gross. Don't ever do
I
that.
mean, also, yeah, well, duh. But yeah, it's just fascinating because I've caught a match here and there, a MOBA match here and there and stuff, and there's like that, like it is one of those things like I just don't have the interest in like, oh, I'm leveling up because I'm becoming a more skilled player versus like the like my character's leveling up. Obviously that all happens, but like within a match, and then the next match you're starting from scratch again. I'm just like, that doesn't
Yeah.
really appeal to like my personal tastes these days. I don't have the inclination to. I'm also not competitive enough to like pour time in and time in and time in to just try and get better at these things. Like even playing like through Fortnite, it's like I'm playing those matches to like unlock new skins and stuff like that, and to just blow off steam in like a match. I never go into a match expecting I'm gonna win or do well or anything like that. So it's just like occasionally I take them out. When I do, like I won a match this earlier in the week with like 11 kills, which is like on the very high end for me. When I do, the rare time I do win a match, with that many kills, it was like, oh, but like some of those were very clearly bots. Like I was watching people just run into a wall and like shoot at very like deliberate things. So I'm like, okay, this is clearly not actually a person on the other side of the computer. It's like it was a very choppy AI.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so when when I end up with the win, I'm like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure none of those were actual people that I actually killed in that one, but whatever, I'll take the win. So yeah. Well, I'm glad you're having a good time with Pokemon Unite. And I hope that yeah, after this, the Halo wraps up, everybody has come back and continues to enjoy their Pokemon MOBA with you. I keep seeing people be like, "This is the first MOBA I ever played, and I love it. I'm having a great time with it." So, it'll be interesting to see if this is one of those games that is a flash in the pan, like we talked about on the Game of the Year watch episode of like like an Outriders, where everybody gets really into this thing for like 2 weeks, and then the next thing comes along and everybody bounces off of it, or if this will have legs and people will keep coming back to Pokemon Unite. Be very fascinating to see. So the last thing you had that you wanted to touch on was some music stuff. You mentioned Stay and the Lil Nas X stuff.
I
So
wanted to.
tell me about these songs that you're getting really into, because I cannot help you on this one probably at all. I have heard of one or two of the Lil Nas X songs, and I may have heard of this Stay song, but I don't know. I'd have to like
Yeah,
check it out.
it's so Stay is really more recent, and it's something that I've definitely picked up into. How do I put this? It's definitely something that I have gotten more into in regards to. Sorry, I'm trying to. I had something come up here that I needed to take care of real quick. Anyway, we're good. We were good. So Stay is a let me actually let me just grab some actual things here so I can actually make sure I say it correctly. So the Kid Leroy is the artist. He's collabing with Justin Bieber on it. It's a very simple song that is just done and executed very well with very just good lyrics, good solid simple lyrics done in a way, and Justin Bieber absolutely kills it with his collaboration on it. They're both tenors, they're both singing in a higher tone or a higher range, and it's just going very well, and it's just a good song. It's just a good bop. It's a bop that makes you just go
For audio listeners, Cameron is bopping. That is exactly how I would describe that. He is bopping as only a larger white man can.
That's fair. I prefer a rotund white man.
Rotund. I almost pulled rotund in there, but
I would prefer rotund. Large is just such a vague term because it can mean a lot of different things, and I would just prefer to let's just stick to geometric shapes, shall we? Spherical. Anyway, it's a good song. It's really good. It bops. I watched just a recent breakdown of it. So are you listening to it right now? Yeah. Trevor's nodding his head yes. For audio listeners. It's just a fun song.
Yeah, if I try and play it on the computer, it'll get picked up alongside your audio, so I muted my mic and I'm watching it on my phone.
That's fair. The thing that I pulled away from though was I was really impressed by, and the reason I got it further into it is because I saw snippets of the music video on Spotify. The music video is very high quality, but also once again, very simple. Mm-hmm. The concept, very simple. The execution of it is just excellent. I think it's really more of just a incredibly well executed song and music video. That is just, I don't know if it'll last longer than the summer, but it is a bop.
Cool. Yeah.
It bops and it's good.
He started singing. I was like, oh, I've definitely heard this one, a couple times here and there. But yeah, I would not have been able to pick it out. I mean, it is top 40 stuff. I'll hear it when I hop in my car and listen to Kiss FM or whatever on my way to Chipotle to grab food. But it's definitely not the kind of thing I would go and seek out myself. But cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it. You mentioning that you watched it a breakdown video. That's sometimes that's even the more fascinating. I shared with Logan this week. I watched a couple breakdown videos on the In the Heights musical, the film in particular. But then the guy has also done in-depth things about the opening number, the first 3 minutes of the opening number of In the Heights, and how Lin-Manuel Miranda changed the musical forever kind of thing. And I always love those deep dives. I talked at length last year when we were doing our Hamilton run of That D Plus shows. I would always talk about the video that breaks down all the motifs throughout the Hamilton musical. And it's fascinating tying it back to the Final Fantasy VI book that I'm talking about. Final Fantasy VI, the boss fight book, is written by a musician, and it is a thorough examination of Nobuo Uematsu's music in Final Fantasy VI, which I've loved. Again, it's one of the core reasons that game was my favorite game of all time for the longest time. And so it's fun because I the chapter I'm in right now is the leitmotif chapter, and it's talking he's going through kind of character by character about how the music of a character gets introduced, and then how it gets spun a little bit to show character growth a la a leitmotif. And so it's fun, just as somebody who doesn't I studied music and stuff in school, but I was also a drummer, which notoriously doesn't typically read music. I was the exception because I could read music and play the xylophone and the timpani and the actual noted instruments instead of just banging on a snare drum or something. And so
which is me, somebody who cannot read sheet music, despite the fact that I have been in choirs. I played the bass guitar. I very much have played and been involved in things where I should know and be able to read sheet music. I couldn't tell you the difference between a quarter rest and that's not true. I can tell the difference between a quarter rest and a full rest because it's timing. It's not about reading the sheet music. That's about the timing of when you're supposed to go and stop.
But would you know the symbols if you saw like the sheet music? Would you know which one is a quarter rest versus which one is a?
The rests I do because they are like very different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to ask me, hey, is this a G note or a C note or a D note? And I would tell you, go fuck yourself. You know I have no idea. Why are you asking me? One of the worst things ever was I was in a choir. One of the choirs I was in, I sat next to this kid named Ryan. If you, I doubt you listen to this, but if you do, know that I know you went bald, motherfucker. So deal with it.
Cameron laying the slap down on his old classmate Ryan. Ooh,
Ryan sucked, and everybody knew it.
All right. I hope he has a podcast where he's like saying the exact same thing about you.
I hope so.
By the way, I was in this class with this guy Cameron, and just a heads up, like he didn't bald, but he has gotten big and rotund.
He's become a fat. He was always a piece of shit. Now he's a fat piece of shit. No, here's the thing. I didn't bully this guy, but God, did he tempt me to bully? Like,
I was in choir.
Like
and I like there was this one kid. I was a bass in choir, and we had bass twos and bass ones that all sat next, in the same action. I was a bass two.
The cool section, the cool kids section. God, I always wanted to sit with the basses. Sitting with the tenors sucked.
This kid was like such a piece of shit and just wouldn't shut up. And at some point, like he snapped me, and I just like punched him in the face, and I didn't like, it wasn't hard or anything. It was just like a quick jab to shut him up, and it shut him up. And then the teacher was like, "Trevor, did you just punch him in the face?" I was like, "Yes, I did." And he's like, my teacher like was very cool. She's like, "Okay," like because she knew I was doing it because he was disrupting the class. So like I didn't get sent to the principal's office or whatever. She's just like, I saw nothing. Kind of like she played it off like that. But yeah, I think of that occasionally where I'm like, that's right. I did like I don't remember the kid's name or anything like that. I can kind of like sort of remember his face, like if I think about it, but it's mostly like I remember just getting so annoyed with this kid at some point because he wouldn't shut up, that I just punched him in the face. Yep. Yeah,
for me, the thing that he did that annoyed the hell out of me. One, he was always a little off, like weird, and like, but that's no reason to bully a kid, no reason to be mean to him. And certainly I wasn't being like that. The big thing is that I didn't bully him, but like, God, did he give reasons to like give him a hard time? But we collectively as like a school just tried not to give him a hard time. It was just, it's one of those things that like it's too sad to like try to pick on this guy. But the thing that he always did that pissed me off, outside of just being a general like, the thing is that he always acted like he thought he was better than everybody else. And then when you talk to him and you kind of like insinuated that you felt that he was coming off that way, he doubled down on it by like making sure you knew that he thought he was better than you.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that. But on top of that, also, whenever we were singing and I was like a little off because I don't read sheet music. So I would match pitch and tone by ear.
Yeah.
Because I learned how to play bass and I learned how to sing by ear. And so I listen and I match because of that. And I've had amazing, like the instruction that I have been given when it comes to music, I was given by really amazing people who, instead of being like, well, you need to learn how to read sheet music, they're like, you're in high school. This is a high school choir. You don't need to read sheet music. Don't worry about it. I was taught to know when it shows the notes go up and when it shows the notes go down.
Mm-hmm.
And just like follow that wave and like follow it when it goes down and do your best to do that and listen to pick up everything else.
Yeah. I mean, like, being able to read the music, especially if you're singing, isn't going to help you because it's not like, okay, this is an E, so I can just pull an E out of air, like as a singer. That doesn't, like, that's not how that works. I mean, some people can do that and, more power to them. But like, I can appreciate that. Yeah, you didn't really need to know how to read sheet music at the time. You just reminded me of something that I actually thought like a lot recently. Okay, yeah, go ahead and finish your story. I have one real quick to spin off on this though.
Let's go off that. But he did this thing, and audio listeners, I'm going to describe what he did. Whenever I was like trailing behind because I was trying to listen to see what like note I needed to start hitting, he would do this thing where he would raise his hand to try to like lift my voice, like by like giving me a sign that I'm lifting your voice, Cameron. Sing higher with me, like reach that point with me. Or he'd be like, or like you're not like. He'd do this thing where he like would just like lift out his hand as if he was like guiding me, and I always wanted to just give him shit, but I sat next to an absolute saint of a man named Mitch. Mitch was a great human being. He remains to be a great human being. Love him to this day, even though we haven't talked to each other in years. He got married, has kids. He's an awesome human being. Last time I talked to him anyway. But just always was an awesome guy, and always knew when my fuse was short with Ryan. And at one point in time, I was about to snap, and he told Ryan, he goes, "Ryan, you need to stop." And Ryan's like, "I'm just trying to help him." And Mitch says, "If you do it anymore, he's going to kill you, and I'm just going to let him." Like, he's going to beat, he didn't say kill you. He's going to beat you up, and I'm not going to be able to stop him. Because I don't think I should at that point. Because, like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, man, coming back years later, and this guy who treated me like I was I had confidence issues about myself in high school. Of course I did. I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. But, he always his way of being like, I'm better than you. And then I come back after high school and I see that he's gone bald, and I'm just like, oh, sweet validation. You bald headed fuck looking Caillou motherfucker. Fuck you. Like, I took photos and I sent it to my friends, and I'm like, this is the greatest validation that I've ever had, that God does love me.
There you go. I was in choir and I was in band and stuff, and I learned how to read music in like fourth grade, like band and stuff like that. Back when I started kind of playing music. And I remember in high school, they had regional band and all-state band and stuff like that, and choir and all that stuff. And the auditions for that were always like, okay, go in with a prepared piece. Either, if you're playing, an instrument, go in with like a prepared solo, or if you're singing, go in with like one of these, songs or whatever. And then there was also a sight reading component. And I was like, how the fuck is sight reading? I can't, I couldn't sight read rapidly like that. I could read the music, and so I could learn a song, but I had to work to know the song. So when it came to the sight reading portion of something, I was like you kind of described of okay, if it's going up, I know to go up on the thing, but I'm probably going to hit the wrong note in trying to play a xylophone piece in that I'm just seeing for the very first time. That's the kind of thing that I, as a very studious person, would go home and I would memorize, and I would learn it, and I would practice it over and over again, and go through kind of note by note and figure out what I was supposed to be hitting and all that stuff. And so I was thinking just the other day of how annoyed I was that sight reading was a component of those things, because it's that is especially, and I think it was a weird thing where somehow that came up in my mind as an accessibility thing of that's, I'm sure you are, blocking out an entire class of performers that can't sight read, but they can sing or they can play music. They just need to actually have the time to sit with it and learn it and work it. And so, yeah, I was thinking about that the other day of cause I was all regional stuff for a handful of things. And then I think I even made it to the all-state orchestra one year or something like that. And that was just barely, because I had probably botched the the sight reading component of it, but I was one of the 7 or 8 percussionists or whatever they had in there, so they gave me the part that wasn't involving playing the music, and it was just I was banging a bass drum or something like that. But yeah, it was I definitely think about those things occasionally, and it's weird when that memory floods back in, I'm just oh, that is a thing I have not thought about in 15 years, but suddenly I have everything coming back and like
Yeah.
the thoughts that I had and the feelings I had in those moments and stuff like that. So
You bringing up regionals reminds me the one time I was ever selected to represent my school for regionals in my tenor course.
mm-hmm.
Or as a tenor for my chorus was to I was given prep time, like I had a song done, I was ready to go, I was like I had it memorized, I had the music down like in my mind, knowing what notes I needed to hit for it and everything. Like I had the song memorized frontwards and backwards. And the day comes and my mom isn't around to like the Saturday that it's happening. I'm like, okay, Mom, I need you to like take me. And she was like, well, I have this thing going on, so maybe. And I was like, okay, maybe. All right. Well, that'll be fine. And so it came around and my mom was just like not showing up to like take me. And I got really miffed and really pissed off and like called my mom over and over and over again. And she finally calls me back and she says, what? I was like, I needed my ride to regionals. And she goes, okay. She goes, all right, that is bad on me. Like I was supposed to be out of here a couple hours ago. Wait, what were you going to do about sight reading? I was like, what? She goes, yeah, you have to be able to read sheet music that they give you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh. And she goes, yeah, what? Because I had older siblings who could read sheet music.
Yeah.
Who were part of my older sister was part of All-State and stuff, like regionals and whatnot. So, like, and my brother was in chorus as well. So my brother was a big choir kid as well. So my brother was part of those as well. And they both can read sheet music.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom knows I can't.
Yeah.
And so she said, I didn't think you were going to be doing this seriously because you can't sight read.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, so that's a component of it? She goes, yeah, it's a major component of it. Like if you don't pass, like if you don't even make an impact on sight reading, like you're not going to get chosen over the kids who can sight read, even a little bit. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, now I'm kind of justified. Then I went to school the following Monday, and the course instructor was pissed because she's like, you didn't even show up. Like, what's the deal with that? Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, like this happened. My mom, like scheduling conflicts, whatnot. She goes, well, you could have gotten a ride with somebody else. And I was like, yeah, you didn't tell me I had to do sight reading. She goes, well, yeah, you have to do sight reading. I was like, and this is when she learned I couldn't read sheet music.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an awesome moment because she went, wait, you can't read sheet music. I was like, no. She goes, but you like, dude, I was like, I can see where the song is going in the sheet music, but I can't I don't know what notes are. And she went, what do you mean you don't know what notes are? Like, this is you've done other music stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know notes though.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, I'm like, you show me notes. I don't know what they are.
Like, if you're looking at a piece of sheet music, you're like, I don't know that this is a D flat, or whatever, E flat major.
I don't even know if it's a D note or an E note.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I don't even know where things line up on the lines and what happens if they're upside down. Like, and she's like, what do you think this is? I was like, it's an upside down note. She goes, no, it's like whatever it was. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I can't read these things.
Yeah. Also, the notes aren't actually upside down. It's just they like notate them that way because, hey, you don't want the line going up off the top of the page. So it's like, hey, that note's high enough. We'll do this, point in the other direction. But yeah.
I didn't even know that, Trevor. I didn't even know that. So there you go.
Out of curiosity, what would you think an upside down note sounds like versus a right side up note?
I don't know. I just sang whatever note I was hearing from people or from the piano, from the accompaniment.
Yeah.
And so, like, when I told her that, she's like, oh, you should not have been put up for that then. Like, you should, like, don't worry about it then.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, especially since she's like, yeah, you would have, like, she basically insinuated I would have gotten my ass kicked because, apparently in my year, there were a lot of great tenors. Yeah. So they say. Yeah. So they say.
Like, it felt like tenors and sopranos in particular. I mean, like, because like our school was like had a really big music program, or the choir especially. Like we were constantly having like, I feel like our school usually had like the most people at like an all-state type of thing. Like the most of, if you like break down all the kids, like more kids came from Saguaro than had come from like other classes. Yeah, because our music teacher was really good.
Yeah, I feel like that's the case for every Scottsdale school, though.
I mean, that's sure that's fair. But like I remember at our regional choir, the like one of the years I was in it, it was like 100 kids or something like that, and like 40 of them were from Saguaro. And to the point, like you mentioning like the kind of the teachers being able to like point things out or something. The At one point we were singing and the conductor was like, "Hey, we're gonna." So I really want some of the basses to like drop down an octave here. So who has like a good low D or something like that or whatever? And she pointed at me. She's like, I hear you have a good low D, because like I had my long hair at the time. I was very like recognizable, and so I think like she had talked with like our teacher. And so it was like me and a couple other guys just kind of like dropped down an octave for like this final note of a song or whatever to like add an extra little harmony piece to it. And I was just like, that's very weird that I just got called out in this setting. This is odd.
You got called out for having the good low D.
Yeah, good low D. You got that good low D, Trevor. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think fondly back on like my choir days, especially when I was in the men's choir I was in. We would love doing, especially last year when like sea shanties came back into the forefront, because I think back fondly to when we would sing like Drunken Sailor, What Should You Do with the Drunken Sailor? We sang that at a competition, and when we were listening back to like the judges' notes, one of the judges was like, "You guys have like a real mean and ugly sound to you. It's great. It sounds like it fits so well with these kinds of songs." And we made shirts for our men's choir where we put like mean and ugly on the shirt, and basically like wore that as a badge of pride. So yeah, had fun memories on that. But yeah, like when it came to the sight reading portions or whatever, like my scores were like I was never the kind of guy that felt comfortable doing a solo anyway, so like I auditioned and I had like a song prepared, but I was probably well off key when I was doing that as well, because I was very much like I could read the music, but I very much blended by listening to who was around me. If it came to solos and stuff, largely I think because of being a bass and my own insecurities and stuff, I just felt like I just very often would go flat, and so I'd have to like I was much more of an ensemble kind of singer. But yeah, the sight reading portion of those songs too, I was just like, nope, I'm gonna do what I can eyeball wise, but I'm probably gonna, miss the intervals or whatever. And so I never did very well on that side. And then it would be the same kind of thing on the percussion side of things, where it'd be like, okay, I go in there, I played my prepared piece, and I felt really good about that, and then they'd give me the sight reading thing and like go tune the timpani, and I would take an incredibly long time to like play the music, like play the note on the xylophone and try and like keep it in my head, and I'd go tune the timpani and then like do that, and I'd go back because I was like, they're probably gonna rate me on time or whatever for this too, but I'm gonna try and like at least pretend like I feel like I'm comfortable about this, and then I would like do my best to like play the thing, and I'm just like, oof, that was probably bad, but I like that was the one year I think I got into like the all-state orchestra or whatever, because like I at least tried, whereas like most drummers just are like, this I'm just gonna fail miserably on this. So I think like even with like a very low score on the sight reading piece of things, like a low score was better than a 0 that most of the people were getting on that. So yeah, just there's a flood of memories I haven't thought about in a while. The things I was nerdy about in a past life. Well, cool. Oh, I'm glad, like tying it back to Stay and the Kid Leroy. I'm glad you're enjoying that song, that bop of a jam over the summer. And
also really enjoying Lil Nas X, of course. Industry Baby is like a flat out fantastic song. That also, like, I was super into it last weekend. Like I haven't stopped listening to it all week up until I got it really into Stay. But it's just like, it's such a great song. The music video is phenomenal. Cause like Lil Nas X is just the best troll, because he's using his troll logic to create outrage marketing hype around him. So like the best example is Montero, Call Me By Your Name.
Oh, so he's a Ben Shapiro type is what you're saying.
If Ben Shapiro didn't just suck as a human being.
Yeah.
Sure.
But it's the same.
If Ben Shapiro wasn't if Ben Shapiro wasn't just an absolute shill provocateur for the purpose of hurting people, to make his like little Ben Shabibo feel better, because like there's so many things I can say about Ben Shapiro and the fact that like he's never pleased his wife once. Anyway, I digress.
I mean, he said that about himself. I think
he did.
That was the whole point of that tweet.
Of him being super upset about the WAP song was because he had a massive insecurity because he's like, this is like, it's gross, and like da da da, and everybody's like, oh shoot,
yeah,
Ben,
you don't realize what you just admitted, do you? Yeah, but anyway,
and it's like, it's not necessary to procreate. It's like, Ben, we know.
Yeah,
your wife, like, but it's okay, Ben. You're working hard out there for your wife and her boyfriend too.
Lil Nas X.
Lil Nas X
using similar strategies, but he's a much cooler dude.
He's such a cooler dude. Old Town, like his Old Town Road, like being like, you know, wanting to make a true cowboy, like Western song with Old Town Road, it being recognized by country fans, by hip hop fans, by everybody as a great song, and then
Billy Ray Cyrus,
Billy Ray Cyrus, by the executives of like the Billboard charts and the industry people.
Did they finally come around on that?
They had to, because he released a remix with Billy Ray Cyrus.
Yeah, that's right.
That was definitively heavy country.
Yeah.
Like, it was, like, basically they're like, we're going to remix it, re-release it, and it's going to be even more country, and you just try and say that this one isn't country. And it took everything by storm because it was a big, like, FU to what has very, very much been an industry, a part of the music industry that has refused to give credit where credit is due to its black and African American the contribution of Black Americans to their genre.
Yeah, like Darius Rucker was out there trying to do stuff, and I remember when what Nelly did the country song with one of the like a more established country person. But like I remember the Lil Nas X stuff coming through and being like, good for him, because like I mean, I like, again, as not a music guy, but like I couldn't avoid Old Town Road, and I really enjoyed that one. I was like a great kind of like bopper.
It was great in a lot of different levels. One, like it is a country song, like it feels country, it is country. And he succeeded in doing that. And then his next big release was actually Panini, which is a totally different song, and it was a fun one too. But
was that the one that had the music video that was was basically like the Back to the Future 3 one? Yeah. I saw that like once, or like. Oh
no, not Back to the Future 3. It was more like Back to the Future 2.
No. Like, I mean, the one I'm thinking was like Back to the Future 3. It went to the Wild West.
No, that one's different.
Okay.
But in this one, it was like flip over to this one, to his next big single, Montero, Call Me by Your Name, which is just the song itself is very sexual. It's very sensual even. And the music video it's a massive, like, you have called, members of the LGBTQ plus community perverts. You have called us, you've called us sinners, and you say we're going to hell. And it was the music video especially is him owning that. Gets to heaven, takes a stripper pole straight down to hell, twerks in front of the devil before he murders the devil and takes his throne. That's the music video. It's phenomenal. But the hype around it basically was like, I'm going to put out a shoe that's like a Nike adjacent shoe, and it'll have a drop of my, like, one of the pairs of shoes will have a drop of my blood in it. And it's like, and so people, like, Christians freaked out about it, caused a whole bunch of stuff, lawsuits, etc. And it was all to drive hype for his song. And so he's using this outrage machine to piss off bigots and racists and all other sorts of people to essentially push his song for him in the public eye. Like, it'd be one thing if people just ignored him because, we'll just not pay any attention to him and it'll go away. but instead he outrages them, and so they can't stop talking about him. Like, they can't. This one especially, like, really hit hard and heavy on for, like, there is, and this is, like, I'm not hesitant to say it, but I want to be very careful with my words. There is a very long history of homophobia within the African-American community.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see that with a lot of people's reactions to Frank Ocean when he came out. You can see that a lot with, you look at old rap lyrics, and the big thing about it, and this is not just because of them, it's because this has been pushed on, like, this is a massive part of toxic masculinity,
mm-hmm.
that things that are related to being gay are related to being feminine is an equivalency to being weak.
Yeah. I mean, the F word is rampant in
mm-hmm.
a lot of, like, hip hop culture, I know.
Yeah, older, especially, like, one of my favorite artists of all time, DMX. There's an entire song I can't listen to anymore, even though it was one of, like, my favorite songs growing up, because he goes into serious homophobic slurs and like, talking about stuff in a way that is, and this is a big part as well, is because a lot of this is a reaction to the fact that in order to make black men feel less like men, they were harmed by white men in the past in certain ways, especially in places like prison.
Mm-hmm.
And made to feel lesser than. And this was a vehicle in which they were made to feel lesser than. And unfortunately, it has had massive ramifications of a deep desire towards promoting a sense of masculinity through toxic masculinity. And it inevitably has been extremely harmful to not just the LGBTQ plus community as a whole, but most especially people of color within our community. And I say this as somebody who does not personally experience it, but has definitely read about it, like, heard people talk about it, seen it in films. I think one of my favorite films of all time, Moonlight, has that is a massive part of the the struggle of the main character is, how is he supposed to be tough as a gangster, as a thug, as a drug pusher, when he's also feeling these feelings that he's had since he was a kid. And it ties into an overall arching story about this young man throughout his lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
It's a phenomenal film, but like that is like unequivocally, it is a film that deals with this sort of messaging and this sort of history within homophobia in the black community.
I mean, I think of Omar from The Wire.
There you go.
You know, as a like a prime example of, like, that was a part of him, but it was also, like, a part of him that he like didn't hide, and that, like, was very off-putting to a lot of people, and because of, you know, how rare that's seen in that kind of culture and stuff like that. But
well, it's also, he's the hardest character on that show. Like, he is the most dangerous man on that show. And it's interesting to note is that when a bounty's put out for him, the guy who is putting out the bounty, Stinger, stops him when they're about to leave, and he says, actually double it basically says double it because he's gay.
Mm-hmm.
Like from that moment, you know, I'm doubling the money because I want not only for you to kill him because he's my enemy, but also, like, because he's gay. And then they kill his lover, and it's a whole thing that actually absolutely unravels that gang in a tremendous way. The Wire is one of the best television shows of all time. Watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, it ties
for the king, you
that.
best not miss.
Oh, such a good.
And they missed that time around.
And they missed, yeah. Yeah, no, it's great stuff. But yeah, so Industry Baby is...
Oh, the one, like, I was thinking of, by the way, was Holiday. And I don't know if it was the actual song of Holiday, but it was like, I remember seeing a trailer for it that had, like, Michael J. Fox in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, cool.
On the flip side of the Industry Baby, it takes place with him in prison, and everybody's wearing pink jumpsuits. And there is, like, he is very much embracing, like, his homosexuality in this music video. At one point, he, like, pops out both of his pockets, and he has guys on either side of him grabbing him and like walking with him down down past jail cells, and it's like just owning everything about it, and like for people who don't know, that the pocket thing is a sign of gay culture in prison, where essentially the more dominant partner puts out their pocket and the less dominant partner holds on to it as a sign of we're together.
Mm-hmm. One of
yeah.
I kind of hope Joe Arpaio, like when he burns in hell, he just has to watch that video on repeat.
No, with the pink jumpsuits and underwear.
Yep.
Oh, I hope so.
Yep.
That man, he's like that's another thing. Joe Arpaio. Something else that makes him an absolute piece of shit is he tried to emasculate men by making him wear pink underwear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, first off, pink underwear is awesome, so fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you're a bigot, and I hope you burn in hell at some point. You massive racist piece of shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So like,
clearly our number one fan, one of our avid listeners, Joe Arpaio.
Oh, for sure. No, I absolutely love Industry Baby. It's such a great song. It has a great tie-in with another artist who comes on and does a collab on that song as well. And it is just like lyrically, it is so good. One of my favorite absolute lines is Lil Nas X is rapping, and at one point he says, I don't fuck bitches because I'm queer. So it's like he's making this whole point. It's like because everybody's talking about like, oh, they're all having sex with women, saying that they're doing referring to women as bitches and stuff, and it's like, and just being like, I don't do any of that because I'm queer, and he does it, and he throws the weight that he has in his hand because he's in the weight yard during this scene, throws it and does that like the hand wave, like the hand down, the very much classic gay effeminate sign of I'm gay, the like with your hand, your hand at a 90-degree angle, just like throws it like that, and it's just perfect. And then he talks about anyway, it's so good. It's a great song, and at some point also it makes reference to like gang warfare. It's good, like it's really really good, super good. The music video is awesome. It's gay as hell, and I love it. It's so good.
All right,
he's such a great provocateur with his marketing, and then on top of that, he's just such an amazing artist on top of all of that as well. And his songs just absolutely slap, all of them.
Yeah. So. Cool. I think that is going to do it for this episode of That Nerdy Site Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I want to give a massive shout out to our Patreon exclusive episode. Sorry, folks, if you aren't subscribed to our Patreon, do so and get a hold of this, or wait till the end of August when you'll get it anyway. It is our 6 month, we are 7 months out of the year. We're halfway through all the games that have been released this year, and we talk about all the games that have come out, what really caught our eye, games we feel like we still need to play. And then on the back end of it, we talk about all the games coming out. And it's great. It's a long-ass podcast, but it's good. Check it out. It only costs $1.
Yeah.
It's worth the $1.
It's like 33 cents per hour, basically, for what you get for that episode.
Man, it's Trevor, Frank, and me talking about video games.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
There you go.
Cool. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will also shout out that episode because I think it was a good one. I think it was a good conversation. But in addition to that, I will shout out our Summer of Star Wars over on That D Plus show. If you're not already listening to that, we wrapped up the Skywalker saga this last week with The Rise of Skywalker, which we all kind of lamented. Logan certainly more than the rest of us, but I think that was one that we're all kind of like, this movie could have been a lot better. But we're not done with Star Wars yet. We're going to continue on now with the standalone Star Wars films. So Clone Wars will be coming up this week. And then we also still have Rogue One and Solo. And then we're going to wrap it all up with the Empire of Dreams documentary on the making of the original trilogy to bring everything kind of full circle to where the Summer of Star Wars started. So check that out on That D Plus show. either all month long for the new shows, or go check the backlog for the rest of our thoughts across the 9 Skywalker Saga films. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site and go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest content from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, and maybe even consider supporting us over on Patreon, patreon.com/thatnerdysite, where every patron for just $1 or more will get access to the Patreon early access episode that Cameron mentioned earlier, our Game of the Year watch for 2021 so far, as well as looking ahead to what is still to come this year. And if you support at some of the higher levels, you can also get access to early episodes when we kind of, basically upload them. You'll get, first dibs on it, first crack at it before it goes live to the public. Yeah, thank you again for listening. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.